Hello, chess friends. This is International Master Valeri Lilov, and welcome to tonight's lecture on YouTube. Today, we're going to be talking about some very interesting subjects. So, I do hope everybody can hear me okay. If you do not hear me okay, please do let me know about that, so I can actually adjust my microphone or the sound, depending. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Today we're going to be talking about the rooks. You see, it sounds like a very boring topic because everybody knows what the rooks are, what they do, and generally everything that's more important about them. However, you will be surprised how a lot of people do not know the real value of rooks in terms of how they can be used for attacking, defending, improving our position, or just setting up the right structure. So my job today is going to be to give you all the necessary ideas that are most important so that you could use your rooks in support to your strategies in the most successful way possible. So let's take a look now. Let's begin with a game that was played between Wilhelm Steinitz himself. Yes, Steinitz was one of the greatest players of who utilized the different positional principles, and he had this incredible game that I consider to be probably my most favorite ever. The game was played between Steinitz himself and Kurt von Barleben. For some of you who have seen this game, that's okay. You could still see it just from a different angle. And for those of you who have not, well, that's a good thing because then you could actually learn quite a bit about it. So it's not going to be really so much about endgames as it will be about rooks. So let's go. Steinitz was playing this game with white, so he started off with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4. The opening up started quite well when he played the Italian, and then there was also the move d4. Now, a lot of people do not play the opened Italian nowadays, and there are different reasons for that. Some just consider it better, easier to play up normal with d3. Some just like more straightforward formations. I personally love the Italian in this way because the Italian is supposed to be a very active opening, and by playing it with d4, white gets the best possible development, the most active possible development that he would like to. And this is really what it means to play this system. It's not complicated variation. On the contrary, it is rather easy, it is rather simple, and that's what we want. Okay, so now let's take a look. After the move was played, after d4 was played, black basically captures. And of course, after the capture, there is the move c6 to the d, bishop b4, and knight c3. Now, the interesting part here is that white's sacrificing a pawn in the middle. Now, that sounds like a strange thing to do. So it comes to the question, okay, why is white really doing it? Why are we giving him a pawn when he could just take it and enjoy a great position after that? And the answer to that question is we're letting that pawn go with the main idea to sacrifice it in order to open up and quite easily threaten black, just like start or what I would call take on the initiative. It is a very nice thing to do, and for those type of positions, it is the perfect. So what white is doing is actually he's setting up for the sacrifice. Okay, what did black do? Black actually picked up to play with d5. And in that type of position, okay, so actually as the d5 move is played, then white plays e6 to the d, knight takes. Now this is basically the wrong thing to do. Why? Well, because essentially accepting to move the pawn and open up the center goes against black. He's not supposed to do it if he is behind in development. He's not supposed to, play like that. And it is, generally speaking, a bad idea to open up the center or engage in tactics when you are yet behind. And black is definitely fairly behind in both development and possibilities. So his idea to open the center just doesn't quite fit this position or the structure over here. So what's happening? Okay, what's happening is that after d5, e takes to the d, and then knight takes to the d5, white actually picks up the castle short. Black did the same. He plays bishop e6, bishop g5, and bishop e7, blockading. Bishop takes d5. Now, one thing I want to tell you is that the rooks as well as the queens as major pieces do not get involved for quite a while. That means in the opening stage, we do not start with the idea of queens and rooks. We don't start with that at all. We start with the idea, can I open up the position? Can I break through to give myself the ability to attack? Because if that's done, and I really mean it, if this is done well, we are going to get some pretty effective ways of attacking and exploiting the opponent's position. That is the very first thing that we're looking for. How do we get the chance to open up, attack, and threaten? So in that case, well, I did it with bishop takes to d5. So he's basically jumping into an attacking mode. We're going to have the move rook to the e1 played out in any of the next moves. So I actually love this position and the sequence. What about black? What is he going to do? That's a really good question. So, well, actually, in this case, while white's attack is clear, black decided to play bishop takes d5. Now, I want to ask you a couple of questions, and this is basically the very first one we're going with. And this is, okay, white is well placed. He's got space and possibilities, but what do you think he should do next? Should he try to think about an attacking move of some kind? Or maybe we have to actually try and just improve and develop normally. I'd like you to think carefully about white's possibilities and then tell me or write on the chat what, in your opinion, should be his best way to go with. It's a great question, very important query, and a big one, a big question to be sort of answered. How to play? Take a moment, think about it, and let me know. I'd like to know. Rook e1, not a bad idea. So since we're talking about rooks, rook e1 makes a lot of sense. But no, see, white had a different idea in mind. Even though the move rook e1 sounds like a good one, it's not going to stop black from being able to castle. He'd still castle. Capturing e7, he'll recapture with his knight, and he'd be fine for the most part. So what white wanted was more forcing moves. See, we're hidden development, you can do different things. But I'd say that most important thing about such a position is to go forcingly. Checks, captures, direct threats. It's always the best way to go. We'd like to make it and we'd like to follow it. With the knight x to the d5, black is actually forced to retake with his own queen. And then actually as he's played with the move of queen takes to the d5, then surely white plays bishop takes d7, knight takes d7, and rook e1. And now you see when the rooks really get involved. They don't get involved when we feel like it. We include our rooks, we involve our rooks in the position where, or in the situation where we feel, okay, it's going to be most helpful for me to attack. I would like to figure out the best attacking resource. Now, this is a good moment for me to mention about Grandmaster Sokolov's method course that's being offered at 50% discount. He talks a lot about rooks. He talks about the function of every piece in his amazing course for 15 hours. He's a top Grandmaster talking about how you can master the possibility of each piece in the most effective way possible. And I think that he's right. Just like with a lot of the examples that he gives, the main goal of the Grandmaster is to basically provide a clear idea on how you can assess the virtue of any piece by thinking about where it can battle the opponent. And that's what this is all about. So we're starting. rook e1, pressure against the e7, and the inability for black to cancel. You see, it may not be perfect, but it's a great chance to grab the opportunity and seize it before black has his own chance. That's great. Okay, let's see what happens next, because this is a great moment. What did black do in this position? Well, after rook e1, he basically played f6. His intention was to just stop white from playing rook e5 or jumping anywhere around there. And he's also probably getting ready to move with king f7, rook e8, or even c6. That will give him the ultimate chance to solidify. So I'd like to know, what do you think? Where should white go next? It's a good position. Maybe you can also provide your suggestion on the chat so I could see it, and then I can give you a good thought as to whether you're actually right or not. Great position, a lot of scope, a great scope, great set of pieces that white has. So what should white do now? Anyone? Rook c1, not a bad idea. Thank you. That rook c1 is a good move, but I don't think it is the best move. You see, think about a few different candidates. Never have only one move. Most people think about just one move, and that doesn't work. You want to have at least a few, because when you have a few different candidates, what's going to happen is that you will be able to think about them and decide, and best decide which gives you more chances. In that case, we could certainly play alongside the move of rook c1, but this is the kind of move that wouldn't provide that much of a pressure or tension. The simplest move was queen e2. It's attacking black's e7, which forces him obviously to run. But most importantly, once black gets to run down on the d7, even if the move did not achieve anything on its own, and it does achieve quite a bit, but even if it didn't, it wouldn't have mattered that much, because we would have forced him to step back and move down on a terrible position. So that's something that would like to follow every time. So this is a great idea. So after we have that type of move, it's perfect. So let's take a look. After that move, obviously black played with white played with rook c1. So we did that type of move. Of course, we wanted to do that, but we also wanted to do it in the right time. So black played c6, and now his intention is clear. If the major problem happens to be that knight on e7, he wants to just move that king, set his own rook on e8 to block our own queen and rook, and block with that knight on d5. That way he's going to lock the files down, so we can never reach his king, and things are going to be all right. Or at least he thinks they will be all right. And it makes good sense. I mean, why not? Come on, why not? King goes out, rook goes up. His position is going to feel pretty good. And I mean, for the most part, everything's all right. The truth is that everything looks good, at least for him. But it is not. And I'd like to mention that actually it is not all right, because he needs a lot of things, and he doesn't have those things coming for him just yet. There's a beautiful move that comes out as a resource for white, and this beautiful move simply sets everything in motion. Everything just works out perfectly the moment that happens. Great. What should white do now? I mean, I want you to think very carefully. Now, do not provide me with just a move. Most people do that. I don't want to hear about that. What I want is actually the major thing, which is I want you to think very carefully about the position and what does white need. Don't think about what I want. What do you want? Think about, what do I need to bring? What is the most necessary thing that needs to happen in this type of position? What am I missing? Well, we can do queen a6, but then black will just exchange it, and I think he's going to feel pretty good about it. I mean, after the exchange, then it's going to be the recapture. King f7 is going to be a fine idea, and then most likely after that, he'll drive us back. He'll play rook to the e8, and he'll be good. We can do it, but not right here, not right now. We don't want to play queen to the e6, not in this position. It's another move. Even rook c3 doesn't work because of the king f7 that black can make. So no, not really. Think about what are the key elements that make a successful plan really that successful. And if you really think about that, the elements that make the plan really successful are actually the possibilities with which we could open up the position and attack him. And that's what we're really going for. This is what we need. Rule number one, you need good target and we need good pieces. But most importantly, more important than that, what we need to do is to think of a way to open up, because if we do not open, we're not going to have the possibility to do anything else. And so this is a great idea. What does white actually follow up with? So actually what happens is white made the move of pawn up to the d5. So this was a great candidate in this position. d5 breaks through. It really sets up the attack out there against the opponent. And what we're doing is that we're actually just we are getting to break not just the open lines, but the different type of possibilities once that knight steps in and the rest of the pieces come out from through this. It is great. It is beautiful, and it is effective either way. One of the most powerful possibilities is to give ourselves the necessary amount of pieces. What you got to understand is that having the necessary amount of pieces is not going to help you, not even one bit, unless you actually think of the opportunity to get the necessary open lines. And of course, white sets up the move of pawn up to the d5. We have the chance to give ourselves the knight on through the d4 square. We can do it, from the d4 towards the e6, and that's great. Black plays with c6 to the d, and then of course after the move c6 to the d, then white played with knight to the d4. Just let's get that knight there. We have that knight setting up, maybe directly even going through the square, so it can reach out. E6. It's just beautiful, and it's very difficult for black to do anything about this. You got to know it. It is a rule. It is a principle. You call it whatever you want, but if you don't find the right way to open with your pieces, you're not going to be successful. It's pieces plus files that make any plan really that what it can be. And so now with that knight going directly at the place from where it can make threats is what white needs so that he can succeed. And so yes, after the knight of the d4 is actually played out, the position is almost over for black. I mean, truth is, there's no chance on how or where black could escape. So black played with what? King f7, knight e6. I mean, in other situations, we could actually say that this is a little risky, and perhaps by sacrificing the pawn, white has to play very precisely, but not here, not really. And the reason is because it just doesn't matter. Let him take this. Let him have the extra pawn. The initiative that we're actually having in this position is the killer. And yeah, that's basically all we need. So pretty much after the move of knight of the e6, black has the big problem, and black, he played rook c8. And now we reach to probably the most critical position in the whole game, where white has reached a fantastic setup. He's got the knight and basically every other important piece from behind it. We got the knight, we got the rook, we got the queen, we got the black king, by the way, which is horrible, and we have everything. I mean, literally, white has all the good benefits of an advantageous position. And I love that. I really love the way white is placed. The only question that has to be asked is, where are we going from here? So take a look. We have the setup, we've got the pieces, and we've got the control. But where to go now? How to play at this point? And just now, what is key about this position is that white has to find any chance to break through. It's not going to work that easy, but we have to find a way. How? It's not an easy thing. I certainly think so. Great question. And another interesting thing that I like to say to you is that white is perfect, but being perfect does not mean that you could win. Okay, these are two very different things. Now, what white actually picked up to do was great. It was wonderful, but it was also connected with a very special move. What white picked up to do was a move that helped him to coordinate his pieces. That's right. Coordination is the key. And unfortunately, I like to say, to many people, unfortunately, they don't know how to do it. That sounds like a crazy idea at first, but they don't really know how to do it. So what did white play now? It was queen g4. And that is the actual move which creates a huge attack, not just against the g7 pawn, which definitely is the case, but also the square of g5 that will help white out with the possible shot against f7, and also the attack against the queen in the d7, which works greatly. It is a beautiful move, great idea, and it works like a charm. The moment white picked that one up, he was winning already. Great stuff. Remember, you're not going to succeed unless you coordinate your pieces. This is a big thing for any attack. So it's not gonna work if you don't do it. But the good thing is that it's not that difficult to do. And so when white played along this move, of course, everything is ready. We've got the space, the possibilities, the control, and the resources to make anything work. So what happens next? Well, actually, there's not too much that black can do. So he plays with g6. Let's see if anybody could give me an idea of what white must do. I mean, it's a perfect looking position. We've got extra pressure and possibilities, so I love that. But where do we go next? Now, let me tell you something critical. When it comes down to such a position, it is not about, I'm going to tell you this, it is almost never really about immediate attack. It is about a sequence. Now, what do I mean by a sequence? A sequence usually means the possibility for you to think of a move, then maybe another, and another, and another, that are all going to help you to get your attack going and progress it to a perfect position. Now, that is a hard thing to do. But don't get me wrong, it's doable. If you play with the move of knight g5 check, so what we're actually realizing in that type of position is that the moment this is played out, black has to get that king right back. He's got to move it down. Okay, so he moves it back. And then after the move of king e8 is done, white plays alongside, well, rook takes e7. And this is a really great combination here because we actually understand what it's all about. This is a move that's not about, like finding some big threat or a sequence. It's really just about one thing: destroy the opponent's defense and find the sequence of forcing moves that can help you to win the game. Once the black king, actually, he has a couple of choices. He can take or not to take. But truth is that he's got to take it. Obviously, if he doesn't take it, he's going to be in a deep trouble. So let's suppose that he actually gets to capture. He cannot capture with the queen because of rook takes the c8, which loses him his game immediately. But most importantly, if he plays for the move king takes to the e7, which is the other case of the move, then we've got rook e1, and actually it's wow, just like rook e1 is a killer. See king d8, and then, of course, knight e6 check. If the king goes back, white's knight discovers another check, and then we have the big tactic going against him. He can't do this. It's really a one quite large bit of a disaster. But what's that's basically it. It's like, so if he plays with a move like, say, if he goes right out to king f8, this is the other type of variation we can play. I mean, this is exactly what black picked up, by the way. He picked up to make a move like king to the f8 so that he could solidify, stabilize and everything. Okay, and for instance, after continuing with this type of position, then we're just going to have the move of rook f7. And so white simply continues. It's not about nice little attack. Just keep going and keep going and keep going. And it was great. And so, for instance, as soon as this happened, actually, white played with rook f7, king to the g8, and it was the move of rook g7 that white picked up to play, which was brilliant. That was wonderful. It's a good move because now black certainly cannot take, so he's not going to be able to take on the g7 with the king. And for example, we understand that if black plays with the move king takes to the g7, then there's going to be queen takes to the d7 in this moment, which is brilliant. And that's it. It's great. It's a wonderful possibility. He loses, and obviously he also cannot take with the king, with or with anything else. Well, that's what happened. I mean, in the game itself, black plays king h8. Now you're probably thinking a little bit about, okay, it's just Valeri. Are you sure about this? I mean, what if black just played alongside a move like king f8? Couldn't that have helped him in some way just to solidify? Well, it could have. If we think about it that way, I think it could have. The trouble is that even if he would actually play a move like this, what was so important is that white could just come forward with a move of knight takes h7 and queen takes to the d7, so that this is a horrible sequence. It wouldn't have worked out in any way, and most importantly, it would have just been a really, really terrible sequence to black. No chance to complicate, nothing that he could make in order to make this position any better, and that's it. Now, is there more to that? Sure, but it's just black's losing. He really cannot make anything happen, and that's why he was in such a bad position. One of the really interesting things about such a situation is how white makes it all happen beautifully. It's just like one after the other after the other. We're really taking the opportunity to advance and attack, and it's great. He cannot come up with anything great. Okay, so what did black do? Well, he actually decided, black picked up to follow up with king h8. He just wanted to run away, run down, and he thought, okay, it's going to be a good idea if he just runs out to a safer position. Did it work? Yes, it kind of did. And white plays rook takes h7. Queen takes h7 is met by rook takes to the c8, and if he comes back with the king, there is going to be the move of rook to the g7, which is a real killer. It's an interesting point because this was the moment where actually after rook to g7, Steinitz's opponent Bart 11 simply got up and he left the playing hall. He never returned to finish the game, and when he was asked why he did that, He simply answered that he was protesting to the people who were throwing golden coins at the board from the audience, benches. It was really very, very exciting moment. I think Bartolome never played chess after that game. Actually, I was so frustrated. But the reality is that this rate of the rook on the 7th rank is incredible, because now, obviously, we already know why King F8 doesn't work due to Knight H7. But most importantly, we also know why that type of move actually is bad. So, for instance, after that type of a move, then we have this the Queen H4. Then actually after queen to king takes to the g7, there is queen h7 here. And then ultimately we have this move of we have this queen to h8, king e7, queen g7, king to the e8, and that maybe we can play queen to the g8. So how this is a great way to follow. In fact, actually, as soon as black plays with king e7, we got queen f7 check, queen takes f6, and queen takes to the e6, which is incredible. It's strong, and it works out brilliantly. So that was great. So this is, I think personally, this was a beautiful way to just realize the value of the attack. But there's nothing black could do. The power of the rooks is that when they're open, when they're pressuring and attacking, they can do literally miracles with all the different resources and possibilities that they're given. But you got to get to that point. And oftentimes the problem with most players is that they react towards the rooks like they're every other piece, and they're not. They're really not. The rook is one of the most valuable pieces, second to the queen. All you really need to do is to make sure that this such a valuable piece turns itself forward on purpose to the attack. So this was a great example, I think, at least in my opinion, of using rooks to support our attack. Now let's take a look at another example of when rooks are used. Once again, I would recommend you to check the link below the video for a 50% discount of the amazing Top Grandmaster course by Grandmaster Ivan Sokolov that I think is just incredibly good. And you can learn a lot about how he suggests we could use these classical examples and methods to work in our pieces. The next one I want to show you is a gameplay between Mikhail Botvinnik himself. Now, you've probably heard about him. Botvinnik was one of the greatest players of all time. And he was also amazing with utilizing the best functionality of each piece. By the way, if any of you wants to have the PGNs of these games, you could always email me to send you all the annotated PGNs from today's webinar. You can send me an email to valeri.lilov@gmail.com, or you could just directly message me through my website, tigerlilov.com. I'd love to send you the annotated examples from today or anything else you might need also. So let's take a look at the next game played by Botvinnik. Here we go. So Botvinnik was actually White versus Portish, Monte Carlo, 1968. Quite an old game, but don't worry. It's a very beautiful one anyway. So Botvinnik was White. So he started with c4, the English opening, g3. Black plays the Botvinnik variation in English against Botvinnik. Isn't that kind of interesting? But after bishop to the e6, then White plays knight f3, knight c6, castles, and then knight to the b6. So yeah, things went fine. Okay, so now let's see what came out next. After that move, basically White plays d3. It's like the Sicilian with reversed collars, so nothing too bad really. It's just a normal type of setup, normal kind of line. After that was played, of course, Black simply did the move of bishop e7, a3, a5, bishop b3, and short castles. With that idea in mind, essentially Black is ready to play with the move of queen to the d7. He can play with the move of pawn to the f5, maybe consider even playing f4. So let's take a look. After the move of short castles, Black picked up to do White picked up to do knight a4. And I love that. This is a great variation. The knight setting out towards a4, so we can have the c5 ready. The possibility to move on the queen side quite successfully and efficiently. This whole thing looks quite nice, and I like that, honestly. It's a good line, it's a decent development, and for the most part, white can quite nicely enjoy the different possibilities out there. So what comes out next? Okay, so in that position, of course, things are going good. White is definitely better developed and prepared. So he played with black played with knight takes to the a4, and actually white played queen takes to a4. So things worked out pretty well, I have to admit, with that queen being in line, and with everything else in support. Of course, we have also moves like rook to the c7, and yes, it's just it's great. It's simple, it's wonderful to play, and it is good. So everything's great. Let's go for it. After that, black played alongside bishop d5, and then white plays rook c1, which worked like a charm. The great thing about this position is that what we actually get to realize in this moment is that white is setting up very well. His development is perfect. His possibilities look good too, and I have to admit that it's excellent, just like the variation itself and everything else. And so, for example, after the move of rook to the c1, then of course white advanced with the move of black advanced with a move like rook to the e8. So he's doing good. Actually, what black wants to do is just get the center safer, and things look decent. So what should white try to move with now? I'd like you to think a little bit about this position, because it is a great structure, but we need to be planning quite carefully. So what do we do next? How to advance now? Hmm. See, that setup is good. The possibilities look good too. But we need more. White definitely needs more. Having a good development is not enough. A lot more is necessary, so that so that certain possibilities work. And yeah, what to do now? Anyone? Now, just consider the plan. Think about it. White is set up very well around the queen side. Now, that's great. But where to go from here? Anyone? Rook c3 to double up the rooks. Not a bad idea. What did Botvinnik do? Rook c2. He just wanted to make it a little bit. He just wanted to make it a little bit differently, a little bit more positionally, and we see what it's all about. Just getting that chance to bring the rooks, play the bishop to the c5 is a great starting point. So we're doing it, and actually after that, we're going to set the rooks. You see the rooks again. We're not talking about like just having them around. You want to have the rooks as well as any major piece put on purpose. And sometimes that requires you to think quite a few different maneuvers, so you could basically decide which one is the better. But yeah, we definitely have this great idea. And next move, basically black picked up to do bishop f8. So now white is setting for the move of rook c1. We have an excellent shot. We got good pressure towards the c file, and black is definitely behind. So black plays knight b8. I have to admit that this was not a very good move by him. I'm not sure as to why did he black play it, but I'm guessing that he's intending to plan for maybe a move like bishop to the pawn to the c6 or bishop to the c6, and so this is a good thinking. Now, what does white do? Just rook takes the c7. Rook takes the c7 is wonderful. It's a great attacking possibility. And now what we're doing is that after the sacrifice that white made, you get to see the fantastic pressure, both with the rook that's playing in the seventh rank, together with all the rest of the pieces. And now white is really going to go forward, attack, and set up big threats. Rook takes f7. Isn't that amazing? With that move, we are basically turning everything completely downhill from there by destroying the position, of the king's side. And then we could also focus our attention towards knight moves like queen c4 or anything else. It is wonderful. Big idea and a wonderful tactic to just jump in. So what happens next? Well, actually, if black plays with king takes f7, we got to move like queen to the c4, which is wonderful. And of course, if black goes on with the move of king g6, white plays queen e4 check, knight g5, and then there's going to be also the idea of queen takes h7 checkmate. So this is great. Black can't do it. Not in this case, at least. So supposedly, black will have to do a different type of move. I mean, if he doesn't want that. Let's say that he would play h6. So what do we do next? Well, in that position, of course, white is able to play with rook b7. Even if black does not get the capture, it didn't matter. The key wasn't so much about whether we could win directly there or we can. It's all about just making enough, just putting enough challenge. And so we can have moves like queen to the c4 coming up next. We can have different type of ideas, queen c4, queen b3, other things. And it's all great. It's all really, really good. Little by little, white is making it perfect. He activated the rooks, and it's almost like he's playing with two queens. It may sound strange when I put it like this, but it's really just that. When you put your pieces, when you make them so active and so brilliant, there's very little that the opponent can do. And that's the reason why it worked out so well, because black couldn't just do anything. So we have this great way to fall. And then after the continuation of rook to b7 with the idea of rook to c4 and anything, he was losing. Okay, let's see. So after rook takes b7, black actually picked up to do this move. And then we have the move of queen c4, king h8, knight h4. We're actually letting the black rook, the black pieces to take that rook. It's kind of amazing. He can take it. Yeah, we're okay with that. We don't have anything to worry about. Key is, let's not worry. Let's not bother at all. All we want is more attacking opportunities on the king side. Now, what's going to happen, of course, if black gets to actually capture that rook? Why the hell are we giving it? Okay, this doesn't make any sense. But you realize that the reality is we're just giving the rook, because once he captures it, once he takes it, we're going to have knight g6 check. And with that type of move, obviously he's losing it. He has to play this. And then, of course, with that type of move, we're playing with bishop e4. We get that bishop right up. We have the attacking idea ready and everything. Wow. Bishop d6, knight takes to h5 check. See, white's two rooks down. In fact, he didn't even care about the rooks at first, but he just sacrificed them in the situation in the way which gives him the perfect ability to have his bishops, his knight, his queen, and pretty much every other piece perfectly lined up and set into the battle. What about black? What about it? There's nothing that black could do. So it's a great move, and it was wonderful. One of the things that I really adore about this position, about this situation, is just how impossible it was for black to play this. After g6, bishop takes g, black moves. Then there's bishop takes h6, queen h4, and of course he resigns, seeing queen h7. There was, nothing that he could do. What helped white's pieces to really turn out so brilliant as opposed to black's? Well, there were many. But the most important thing actually that helped White was the idea that he was the one who was always attacking. He was the one who was always creating different type of threats, and it was great. Very strong possibility. Really great idea. The other really interesting part of this game was the build-up. Most people don't realize that the build-up is slow. Okay, it is very slow to do. Does take a long time, but in the end, once we have it, it helps. Where was black's mistake? Well, it's apparently knight b8. Going backward like this, you cannot hope to get a great advantage with this. But it was certainly his biggest mistake that he made, and things just worked out very well for white after the sacrifice, rook b7 and knight h4. The value of each piece was simply amazing, like as it truly happened. So that's all I'd like to mention to you. And yeah, well, that's basically about this game. Now, I'd like to show you the next recept of another very instructive game, so we can talk about. So just give me 1 second. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, Valeri, this is great. I like this setup. It works great. I'd love to do it in my games. What if we have a different situation where it's kind of harder to utilize the rooks? Is it possible to improve them and activate them to their best potential every time? The answer is yes. I'd like to show you one of my favorite players recently, Wesley So's modern masterpiece, who actually managed to get rooks, not just rooks, but really powerful, incredible combination of rooks to become quite successful versus Grandmaster Seong Jeffrey. Once again, before I do that, I'd like to recommend you to check the link below this video so that you could see the fantastic course by top Grandmaster Ivan Sokolov, who explains a lot about piece play and has many, many different examples. These are all examples from his course, but he's got many other examples just about that as well. So anyway, let's talk about this game and see what it was all about. So basically, after the moves of d4, knight f6, c4, e6. Okay, so here we go. He played this. Then there was the move of b5, bishop e7, and Catalan. Now, a lot of people are actually kind of worried about the Catalan, and they wonder, okay, so is this really like easy? And truth is that actually, when white played with bishop g2, black just played d6 to the c. This is one good way on how you can think about the Catalan variation. So we have this just d6 to the c. White played queen to c2. And then as soon as that move was played, of course, then black picked up to do a6. Didn't care about anything else. He just wanted to develop and move around. So that was good. What comes next? Well, after that, white played a4, bishop d7, rook d1, and then there was the move of bishop c6. I love this. This is a great way to follow because, first of all, we're not focusing on attacks or tactics. We're focusing on development. And again, keep in mind that development is literally the most important thing. You do not care about anything else. All you care about is, can I manage my development so that I could step forward and I can do more? This is the really good idea that white is relying on. So let's take a look. After that type of a move, of course, black plays, let's see, he actually continues with the move, okay, after bishop takes the c6, bishop to the c6, white plays knight to the c3 in that moment, no problem. And so, of course, after that, now with black plays bishop takes. Now, this makes very special decision by black to exchange a bishop, a long-range piece, Why the hell would we would like to do that? And the reason is because by trading off, black could set very quickly moves like, say, knight of the c6, and possibly the next thing is he could even consider playing a move of knight c6, knight b4. There's going to be other stuff, and it's great. So what's coming next is that white played bishop takes f, knight c6, bishop takes the c6 was good, e takes the c. Now we get the open line. So it's a perfect variation. It's really, really good to see. The moment this is done, we have everything perfect. It's a great way to go for it. And let's just go. Let's just play it. Step by step, everything is perfect. And of course, now what might happen, what he did in this type of position, is that after bishop to the g5, black played rook to d, and yes, open files are always there. You just have to create them. You have to set them up. Now, that's not easy, but it is something that we can do. And so, after c5, white played d takes to the c, and black did queen to the e8. No problem. We're definitely having everything under control, and this looks good. Rook d4, knight d7. Bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and c6. So what's actually happening in this position? Okay, here's the thing. When white actually pushed up to play with c6, trying to attack against the knight and keep some extra pressure, it doesn't matter so much because next move that black plays is knight e5. Now I want you to compare the two lines, the line of black versus the line of white. Both sides have nice lines, but actually it does not matter, because what we're seeing in this type of position is that now white has terrible position. He's got pressure out there, and of course we got the moves of rook to the d3, and it's a great way to go for it. Now we have this excellent way to follow up, have this idea, and we have the resource to attack him. It's great. So princess, after continuing with the move of knight to the e5, everything is perfect. What's coming next? Well, white played queen to the e4. He just wanted to, just set it up and advance quickly. So that was fine. What about black? Well, black played queen c5. He, on the other hand, did not want to go quick. He just wanted to solidify. And now he realized the value of the open line. Black's attacking, white's trying to attack. Wesley So knew that the effectiveness of the piece does not depend on where it is. Now comes a great move. Would you care to find it? If you would care, it'd be great. But just take a moment to think this through. What should black do next? What should be his best move to follow? He's got a great setup. Very good pieces, by the way. Very, very strong pieces. But I don't think this is enough. What we really need to do is to find a way to attack with them. Well, this is not easy. So where do we go? Knight takes f2. Brilliant. That's all that there is. We have the opportunity to follow up against the opponent because we're going to have the option to play with, rook takes the b2. And then we're actually going to go ahead with so many moves. Rook takes the b2. The queen can come out. It's great. White took back with the king. Black plays alongside with rook takes the b2, king f1, queen h5, queen g4, queen takes h2. Look at the difference between the white queen and rook versus the black queen and rook. See, it's amazing. Black is attacking. He's got everything set so that the threats could work, as opposed to white, who is behind, backward, and protecting. Nothing else is going well for him. It is that bad. And again, I'm not here to tell you, hey, this is great. Look at this. It's no. I'm here to tell you why this line is so good. And this line is so good because black is fantastic. With the power of its current pieces, the pressure they create, and the fact that white is so far back, we've got everything. So c3 comes in. Brilliant. Gotta say that this is probably my most favorite move of all, because with the move of pawn to the c3, black is ultimately jumping forward and attacking, greatly. We can have c2 and rook b1 coming up any second. But most importantly, you realize that it's just the fact that the majority of white's pieces are quite unable to do basically anything at this moment. They're bad, they're passive, and they're behind. That adds to all the horror that he's got to experience, all the terrible things that are going to follow to him. And it's quite interesting, really, just to see this going. After that move is played, basically, the next candidate was rook c1. That's what he basically just came on to play with. But it didn't matter, because then black plays e5. Black is a piece down, but then he continues with more threats and more threats. And now, finally, black releases the last battling piece into the play. Now, this move, when I first saw that move, I was like, wow, man, I like to play like that. I know I can. Not yet. But I like to play like that. And it's great. It's really lovely. We got the amazing power of the rook and every other piece that just completely kill off the position. It is great, and it is wonderful, and it is exciting. You name it, it's there. You name it, and it's there. And the truth be told, right after the move rook to the d8, surely white has no chance. This is a no-win situation for white. He doesn't have any ability to make any progress except to play with knight d5. But then there's rook takes to the d5, and we see that now there's a capture check in c2, which can kill them. When I first saw that game, I was like, wow. Wow, this is a cool game. I want to be able to play like that. And sure thing, I hope one day I can. Don't think it's going to be anytime soon, but I hope that I can. I hope that one day I can play like that. The incredible value of this whole sequence by black was based on the effectiveness. The difference between activity and effectiveness, either the effectiveness provides us with a chance to know what a piece is actually going to do. Not what a piece is, but what it's actually going to do. Like, why do you want to have that piece there? What's the true value of a piece that you want to bring down there? When you think like that, when you figure it out, it's almost always going to bring something special. And so that's what happened right here. It was great. It was effective. It worked out beautifully. And it turned out into an amazing sequence that white just couldn't figure out. Couldn't do anything about it. So I do hope that you enjoyed these games as much as I did. Again, these were pretty good games. They were all about preparation, improvement, and you name it. All those little things that most players don't care about, and yet they're critical. So for all of you who want to learn more about these principles, I'm going to recommend you once again, check out the Grandmaster Ivan Sokolov's course, 50% discount. And if you want me to send you the PGNs of those games, just drop me an email to valeri.lilov@gmail.com, pasting that link on the chat. Or another possibility is you could just directly write me through my website, which is tigerlilov.com. Once again, check out Grandmaster Sokolov's course, 50% off only for the next few hours, and I'm sure that you're going to enjoy it a lot. Thank you so much. Have a good time, and I'll speak to you next week.